Hi, everyone, and a warm welcome to this session focusing on the role of the sporting director. I'm Kjell Bodinggaard, and I will be moderating this session. The position of sporting director is certainly not new, but its areas of responsibility vary a lot from organization to organization. Normally, starting from the top, the board, the ownership, the CEO will define the strategy by answering two very profound questions: where to compete and how to compete. And then the management steps in, including the sporting director, because that's normally where the insight, the know-how, and the skills are positioned to execute the strategy. And that is certainly the case with this morning's panel. Four sporting directors will join us for this session. So please welcome Bianca Reck, sporting director at Bayern Munich Women. We have Eniola Luko with us, sporting director at Aston Villa FC Women. We have Hannu Tihinen, sporting director at the Finnish FA, with us today. And last not least, we have Simon Rolfes, sporting director from Bayern 04 Leverkusen. And maybe I should start, Simon, with a short disclaimer. You're actually my boss, so it would be wise of me not to be too tough on you today. Thank you for joining us on this talk. And to start out with an easy one and to set the scene, I'll ask you just to please give us a quick introduction to your areas of responsibility. Bianca, first.
well, sure. Yeah, I'm the sporting director of the FC Bayern Women's, and yeah, the task I have to do, I think you'll probably say all the same. Sometimes it's almost everything. So, but my most task is responsibility I have for the first team of the women's team at Bayern. So I'm the main task is making sure about the squad planning, but as well the sporting and the strategy for the next years. And as well responsible for, let's say, the youth strategy, how we want to work in the youth to make sure that we have homegrown development as well. So when all of this, it takes most of the time, plus having, talks with agents, bringing new players, and this is the main responsibility.
All right, Yola, you just stepped into the sporting director role at Aston Villa last year. What are your main responsibilities?
Yes, so it's been my first year as Aston Villa Women sporting director, and as Bianca says, sometimes it feels like absolutely everything. But I like to break my role down in sort of three parts, really. So the technical side, which is direct the playing direction, the technical input with the coach, the tactics, the formations we're going to play. And then the player recruitment as well. And then it's the strategic side. So what's the ambition of the club? What's the brand of the club? So Aston Villa Women being the semi-professional team to now being a professional team. What does that look like? What's the short-term and long-term strategy and how to build the brand? And then the last bit is the management, the people management, managing the staff, the multidisciplinary team, all the staff contracts, and the sort of people management side. That's kind of how I break it down into what my responsibilities are.
All right, thank you. Simon, just to finish, the sporting director of clubs, your responsibilities at Bayern 04 Leverkusen?
Yes, I'm since 2.5 years. I'm responsible for the sports department as the sporting director of Bayern 04. So I have 4 departments responsible for that: the pro team, the youth, the scouting, and the organization in the sporting area. And 80 employees, full-time employees excluding the players. So for signing players, to build a strategy for the club, work with the team, which steps we want to go or to make in the next years. And where we introduce you is we build head of coaching or coaching academy and signed Kjell Bodinggaard as the head of coaching.
All right, thank you, Simon. Leaving the club area, Hannu, working as a sporting director at the FA, I'm sure you have different areas of responsibility. Could you just briefly enlighten us?
Hello, Kelt. Hi, everybody. Yeah, Football Association of Finland, we have around 140 employees. We have divided the whole organization in 4 different departments, and one of them is technical department, so basically sports department. We have 46 employees over there, and I'm leading that department as a sporting director. I'm in charge of, let's say, of course, a lot to do with the whole football development strategy, but in charge of national teams, coach education, and also research and development. That's basically my job.
All right, thank you. So let me set the scene for this next 40 minutes. This talk, we have 4 topics. We will be discussing strategy in football, being the first one. Then we tap into change management. I'm sure you're all familiar with the challenges that lies in that area. Then I'll ask you to come up with your biggest mistake so far. I know some of you have done some mistakes. And then last but certainly not least, we will touch on the need to make the beautiful game a little more beautiful again. We're going through some difficult times. So that will be the topics today. So starting with strategy and football, Simon. Strategy never had a central position in football for various reasons. Many organizations find it hard to control and manage this very dynamic and complex environment. There are many variables. It's filled with a lot of luck as well. So it can sometimes be tough to work strategically in a football club. And Simon, having a game tonight in Hoffenheim, important away game for the club. I'm sure you're familiar with the saying, yeah, you're welcome to think 5 years ahead as long as you win tonight. That's a dilemma in every club, I think. So how do you handle this challenge of thinking short-term, getting short-term results, and combining that with the need to prepare the club for the future?
Yeah, both is very important. So you really need short-term success, I think, to implement long-term things, and that's why you cannot only say if you enter a club, okay, where we want to be in 5 years. You have to do your best to change also in the short-term view. For example, when I was appointed as the sport director in 11th place, and there was a lot to do also in the long-term view to change the sporting department, but at the beginning was the most important thing to handle the first game and get the result. If you're on that way, you can implement long-term strategical things, and I think what's really important is one thing is not to be emotional, because short-term things are very emotional. If you win today or if you lose, that's for sure emotional also for me, but as much more for the fans. And I think in a responsible position, you have to act rational and see your goals short-term and long-term. So that's one thing, and I think in the daily work, then it's very important if you plan your week that you implement both. You have a lot of things to do, dealing with agents, signing players, whatever it is, or preparing the next transfer period. And you can do all the daily stuff every day. You think, okay, I've worked 24 hours, there's no problem. But if you plan, and that's my thing. At the end of the week, I plan my next week, and then I have an overview. Okay, what kind of stuff I will do next week, and I also try to focus on both those things in my next week. Long-term things where I think, okay, I improve the club and I try to develop the club, and also what helps now to the next game. And that's my way of dealing with it.
All right. Turning to you, Eniola, you face, from my point of view, a twofold challenge as well. You are preparing Aston Villa for the future in the professional women's game, but at the same time, you cooperate with the league to promote the women's game in England. How can you cope with both challenges?
Well, I think the first responsibility is obviously to the club and to promote the professionalism of the women's team at Aston Villa. One of my first tasks really was to uplift professional experience for the players from what was semi-professional, training twice a week, to now being a professional outfit. And what does that look like? It's, you know, training on good pitches, making sure the players have food every day, making sure that we have the right facilities, which in women's football it's really important. Making sure that the building that we're in is the building that we're always going to be in. Those were the things that I really had to make sure were in place for the professional player experience, which then adds to the professionalism of the entire game. And in the league, because the league in England, they set those kind of criterias. So the WSL will say, if you want to be in our league, these are the things that you need to have in place to make sure that you're hitting professional standards. So that was one of the main things that I'm quite proud of, because that transition from semi-professional to professional, there's lots of little things that I had to put in place to make sure that the players came in every day and felt like professional players.
Right, and Yola, I like the way that you describe this challenge, that you are competing on the pitch, that's competition, but you're also cooperating outside, giving birth to this expression, cooperation, and I'm sure that's a central issue for you. Bianca, being at Bayern Munich, it's a different challenge, I guess. It's a more established club, but you are strategically now rethinking, I think, some of your models, because you face, for example, from Neola and the Women's League in England, growing competition. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as you just said, Bayern Munich has a huge tradition. We celebrated our 50th birthday last year, but when I came in 5 years ago, I couldn't see like a really strategy where we want to be with the women's football department in the next few years. So that's what Simon said. I think it's very important to have a long-term strategy, and even sometimes it's winning or losing. Like the emotions coming in every week when you lose or win. But it's important to not losing the focus on what you have built or what you want to build. And I mean, this year we're on a really good way, but wasn't expected. So, but you still have to look forward, and you have to follow the way you want to build, apart from winning or losing. But as well, I mean, in the end, sometimes it's hard, but you have to believe in the way you want to go. Competition-wise, yes, it's tough for us in Germany with the competition. We always look over to England, which is amazing way they had in the past and what they're building on right now. And as Andy said already, I think it's very important to set up let's say criteria for clubs to build on a very professional way. At the moment, it's quite tough for us in Germany, so I think we have to build here first, and we have to grow. It's very important to be competitive in the future in Germany.
Bianca, in at FC Bayern Munich, a club with a huge history and a winning culture, you might even say a winning habit in the men's world. Can you tap into this winning culture when you implement the strategy?
Well, it's not easy because, as you just said, you have the men's side, which is like so successful over the few years, and they won so many trophies. And in the women's side, it's a bit different. So sometimes a little bit hard to manage that because everyone have a lot of expectations. It's Bayern Munich, it's the brand. But I really try to divide that a little bit. Like, okay, this is the men's side with winning a lot of trophies on the one side, but on the other side, being the women's team with a way, with something we want to build on. I mean, we really try to get this feeling, you know, we want to win, and we're on a good way to do that. But even the players, they have to get used to it. New players who are coming in, I always say it's different if you wearing the FC Bayern Munich brand, and it's sometimes very, very heavy. So, and this is something where even players have to get used to it, even young players, because I always say the backpack is heavy with a Bayern Munich brand. So this is something we have to get used to it.
I'm sure, Bianca, you're familiar with the saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you're winning culture from the men's could help you, please try. Hanno, turning to you, in an FA, I'd like to think that you are free of the daily pressure, weekly pressure of winning. Doesn't mean that you cannot be ambitious. Hanno, I know you are. But could you give us a short characteristic of the situation in Finnish football when you stepped in, and what strategic steps you've taken so far?
Yeah, exactly. That was a nice one. Back is heavy in Finland. When I started 7 years ago as a sports director, the association was founded 1907 already. So, and we have never reached, for example, the final tournament in the men's side. So that was really challenging then. But to be honest, the first 2-3 years in my job, it was really like. After that one, it wasn't the easy years, but after that one, I started to have everything in control. And also that when we were analyzing 5-6 years ago the whole organization, it was really like it was lack of really the speed and dynamic, and also the basically the decision-making system wasn't effective enough, and we were not directing our resources in the right way to get better players and the better coaches. That's basically the core business. So that's why we started to make the really huge reorganization process as well. Nowadays we have only one FA. Earlier we had mini FAs, districts as well, 11 or 12 to be honest, 6 years ago. And this was the reorganization process what we have done here during the last 5-6 years now. And now we have only one FA, Football Association, one brand, one finance, and everything is much faster, and it's a much more dynamic way also to decision-making process, for example. That was the first thing. Second, how can I describe? Maybe organizational culture. That's something that what is quite important in the sporting director, that we know how is the elite football, the top football. How can we bring this high-performance environment into the sport organization? Because that's something that we have tried to do here step by step, to building up somehow that it's the environment and the organization where you work it's safe enough, but it's learning, but also really inspiring. And the small competitiveness is all the time there, whatever we do. And that's the way that we try to work here. So the whole regulation process and also the organizational culture, that's something that works quite well nowadays. But we are not satisfied. Even it's the first time ever in the Finnish football history that the men's football A national team will play in the Euro next summer, and women's in 1 year in England. And also tomorrow we have a chance with our futsal team, the men's A futsal team, to go to the Euro. So this is the situation at the moment, but we are still hungry.
I know that's the Finnish season, Hanno. We should be aware of that. That would lead us to the next topic, change management. I'm sure you all arrived in your jobs with the ambition to bring your organization into a better place tomorrow than it is today, and that involves changes. It's also, though, in our world, one of the most difficult management skills, because our world is dynamic, it's complex, and there is a culture to take into consideration as well. Simon, getting back to you, you started in December 2018 as sporting director. You told us, and thanks not only to the pandemic, but also the competitive landscape and the tournament structures in European football are changing. That brings me to ask you, this process you're going through right now in the club, preparing the club for that involves changes as well. What are your thoughts on change management?
Yeah, for sure. It needs, or we need to change, or we need to adapt to the different landscape we're in as a club. And for sure, one of my tasks was also to develop our club for the next decade. And then it's very important that you find a good team and that you, as a team, inspire your team. And I think there are two really important things. The first thing is for your employees, why you want to change the organization. So why it's important to change, to get better. And that's also what you mentioned during the pandemic. It's not so easy if a lot of employees are in the home office, because this is a communication thing. You have to get them involved in that process, and then you have a much more dynamic process than only to decide as a boss of the department or the organization. And the second thing, what I think is really important, because change is always an insecure situation for employees, that you lead by example, and also if your employees have some advices to you or give some ideas how you can better act, how you can change some processes or whatever, you have to be open to that, to also change your work. And I think everybody can improve, and so everybody has to be open to change himself. And then I think you create a culture where change management is not a fear. It's probably a positive thing to be a better club in the future.
All right, Bianca, I know you've made some of the same experiences as Simon along the way. What's your experience regarding change management?
Yeah, at the time in 2016 when I came in, I mean, if you do changes, if you build up some strategy, it's always like, yeah, sometimes it's hard because you have to take decision. And maybe people have to leave, or you have to bring in people. But I think the most important is that you make the people around you to believe in the way you want to build up the things and want to follow the strategy. And I think you have people, or you need people around you that trust it, they believe in it, and this is I think it's very, very important. And you have to deal with so many people in this job, and sometimes it's a very lonely place as well. But because sometimes you make a decision and people don't like it, but in the end, I always say you have to, in my opinion, you have to follow a little bit your gut feeling. That's what I'm doing. And I think so far, let's say we all do a good job at the moment, and we have to follow the stream. So, but it's not always easy, and you have to make the people trust in what you're planning, what you're doing, and you have to, and as well you have to listen to people around you, and this is something important for me as well, because I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect. And even for me, I need to reflect things, and I need people around me that they can, first of all, they believe in me, but as well telling me what I maybe do wrong and maybe what I do good, because I need that to make everything better.
All right. Injola, I know you as a very proactive woman in our business. So I'm sure you arrived with big plans and a clear vision at Aston Villa. So what surprised you the most, if anything, regarding the changes you were planning or trying to implement?
I think we can do a whole panel on change management. It's been the most difficult part, certainly, of my role, because from the beginning, as I said, it was going to be changed. Even my appointment. I'm the first sporting director for Aston Villa, so my appointment in of itself was change, was a massive change, and I represent change to a lot of people who have been at the club for a long time. So for me, that has been the most difficult period, because as Bianca said, it's very lonely if people aren't even open to change. You can't manage change until people are actually open to even hearing the strategy for change. So that period of trying to convince people that this is the way forward is always the most difficult, because once you have them on board, it's then easy. So I've found that it's been very difficult to try and convince people who frankly have benefited from how it was before. You know, human beings don't like change if they're actually benefiting from the current status quo, right? So you really do have to convince them, and how you convince them is through results, through seeing things positively change. But I think the key word is open. You have to have people around you, in the multidisciplinary team, in the staff, players who are open, and you have to recruit that. And if you don't have the opportunity to recruit that from the beginning, change management becomes very difficult.
So have you been changing a lot of persons in the organization in your first year?
No. So I changed the coach recently in January, because we weren't getting the results that I felt that we needed to secure our status in the league. Obviously, that was a big change, and there was lots of reaction to that. And when change comes, it is destabilizing, that of course. But in football, you have to make tough decisions in order to make sure that the strategy is going to be achieved. So that was difficult in my first year as a sporting director, to change the coach. But I felt, and Bianca used that word, your gut. I felt, and I looked at the data as well, that if we didn't change, we probably were on our way to not achieving the objective, which was staying in the league. So change management is something that I'm very, very much keen on developing, and making sure that that's something that is implemented in a way that people are open and come on board with change.
All right. Hanno, you touched on that as well, defining a strategy and then the need to adapt the structures. And you did that profoundly, from what I understand. Could you touch a little on that, the necessity to adapt the structure? Because very often the current structure will not be able to implement the new strategy. Your thoughts?
Of course, everything started basically from our strategy, how to build up the organization that we can serve the clubs, and how can we make the club environment better, high quality everyday life for players. That was the first thing. And then it's about the team. It's about the teamwork, to get everybody to understand that it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. How can we really do it as well as possible? In a small country, they have for example, resources, they have much more. And how can we do everything together even better? How can we be the most effective football association in the world? So you have to really have the real clear vision, your goal, but really important is also that you can communicate that really clear, that everybody understands why we are doing this, why do we exist, why we are doing this change. You have to create somehow, let's say, a sense of urgency, that everybody knows that now we have to do it now, because later it's not chance anymore. Everybody's gone already, and we have to keep our level high enough. And afterwards,
quick question, because you kind of centralized the Finnish FA, bringing every decisions into one organization. I can imagine a lot of people lost quite attractive positions around Finland during that process, because that was a major change. How did you cope with that challenge?
Quite important. I don't know, attractive position. Nowadays we have much more attractive positions, but it's about in football, it's political side also, and that's maybe a little bit more difficult. How to handle that one? How to get people to understand that now we have to make everything possible. Earlier we had, for example, in our previous organization, I think over 400 meetings. Nowadays we have maybe 40 or 50, I mean political meetings. It helps a lot, and you can just imagine how faster everything is nowadays. And if we compete against other football associations, for example, our budget is only 30 million euros around at the moment. I think even Norway, they had three times more, even it's a quite similar population over there. So that's why we had to do everything much more effective, what we are doing at the moment. So this is, you have to have the reason and communicate that really well.
All right. Simon, a closing comment on this topic, change management?
Yeah, I can only add what Hanno mentioned, that first, for me, it's always 3 steps. You have to define your goals. Then you have to define the strategy. And at the end, you have to find your structure, because a new strategy most of the times follows a new structure. And there you have to build the structure with also the people, to find the right people for the right structure in the club, but also externally.
All right, thank you. I'm sure that we just heard that you were forced to make a lot of decisions during your first period, and I'm not sure that every decision was a success. So let me open the next one, called "My Biggest Mistake So Far." I'm sure your colleagues around the world and sports organizations everywhere would like to hear about that. Bianca, do you confess your biggest mistake so far?
Hard one. I think I couldn't count on it, like on the biggest mistake, but I would even say that there are always mistakes you do, and I think it's even important to make mistakes because they make you better. There was not really a huge mistake until now, which is maybe good as well. But I think in daily work, there's always something where you think, maybe this is something I could be or could do better, and this is why I think it's important that you have the possibility to make that mistakes, because this is something which makes everyone better, and it helps you to grow and to develop. And I think there should be room for mistakes.
All right, Niola, your
well,
mistake?
I always say hindsight is a wonderful thing in this job, because you're able to look back and say, oh, actually, maybe if I could have done that, then I would be in a different position. I think for me, as I said, I came into the job at quite a high point, so the team had just been promoted into the league. And so everything was great and everything was fantastic. But we were coming into one of the best leagues in the world. So I think I made an assumption that because everything was great and fantastic and the team had just been promoted, I think I made an assumption that the players were going to be, the players and the staff were going to be able to be ready to bridge the gap in the FAWSL. And I'm not saying that they weren't ready, but I think for me, if I was to go back, I would be much more specific on the player recruitment side and much more specific. And I think it was just said a minute ago, new structure, new strategy. So I'd be much more specific about, if it's a new strategy, can the old structure take on a new strategy? So I think that would be my biggest mistake, as I made too many assumptions at the beginning around, players and around the current structure. And I think you have to be really, really specific about, player recruitment and staff recruitment as well.
All right, I think two great insights from Bianca and Niola here. That from Bianca, you will make mistakes, accept them. That will show your organization that okay, we are moving forward, and of course we all made mistakes, so it's okay. And what's more from Niola, I think the insight that structure follows strategy is an important thing here. Simon, Your biggest mistake. Be careful now.
For sure. No, so as Bianca also mentioned, if you're in a responsible position, you will have to take a lot of decisions. So you make a lot of mistakes, false decisions, and the important thing is to make more good decisions. That's in general. I would say, I could say, okay, is it one transfer better or worse? What I really underestimate is to choose the right persons. And I thought at the beginning with a strategy, with the right arguments, you can change your structure or your behavior of the people, and that was a mistake. I hesitated too long when from my point of view was clear that probably the responsible person of the department is not possible to change and to move forward and stay in his old behavior, although the results were bad in that department. So that was a mistake. That if the persons are not willing to change, it's difficult to be successful. And at the end, it's my conclusion a little bit to if you want to be excellent, you have to search excellent people and have a fantastic staff, because only then you will be successful. You can have the best strategy, whatever you're working on individual, but if you do not have a fantastic team, it's for nothing. And I underestimated this importance for a successful club.
Thank you. Hannu, I can imagine you never made a mistake, but could you enlighten us a little anyway on this topic? You've been very successful so far in the job, but there must have been just one mistake.
Maybe because of the mistakes. Let's say I have two different things. Of course, the first years in my current job, it was really like I took too fast some steps, some operations, some actions before I communicate well enough what's the goal, why we are doing this one. So that's why I don't lead people to not to know what we are doing. That's maybe one thing, and so that's why there were a couple of things that the people were a little bit like, what's the reason we are doing this one? So communicate well enough what we are doing, what's the reason to do it. And also maybe I can take something from the on pathway somehow as well, that the mistake, even if I know a few languages at the moment, it would have been perfect and excellent to learn some more languages when I was young, Spanish, Italian, Russian, whatever. But it's that's something that would have done a little bit differently than I've done it nowadays. But of course, luckily I have still a chance to do it. But Kjeld, I have a question to you, because you are such a perfect guy as well. What are your mistakes?
From the top of my mind, inviting you to the panel, because this is didn't expect this, but I would back up here Eniola. I think that if you create a new strategy, I was involved with strategic work at the Danish FA at a certain time, not to have succeeding in having everybody on board before we took off. Not having the courage, or we hesitated to bring the right people on board, and that made, at the end of the day, the results were okay, but from my point of view, we could have been much more successful, much more ambitious if we had had the courage to adapt the structure when we changed the strategy. So that was one of my mistakes. I made a lot, Hannu. You know that. What I like here is that you actually touch on some of the key points from Arsene Wenger in his key talk. He talked about having a clear vision, a global vision, being able to communicate it as a sporting director, and then transferring into the daily lives. And I think we've here touched on many of these topics. So very nice sum up of Arsene Wenger's key talk here, I think. And that leads me to the final theme: the need to make the beautiful game more beautiful. I think we can all agree that we are facing the last decade some issues in our game that should be addressed and that we should act. So I'd like to kick it off with giving you, Bianca, the chance to propose what should we do to make this beautiful game a little more beautiful.
I think there are 2 points. One point, I think Hanno put it up as well. It's the political side of the game. I think we have to come back to why we love this game, and we should come back to passion. Sometimes I think there are too many mistakes on a political, let's say, top area. So this is probably one point, and one other point is from my experience as a sporting director is, let's say, the agent problem. I just call it agent problem, and I can see that in women's football at the moment. It's a quite tough one because there's a lot of change there. A lot of players don't know really the person behind, so how they're acting in front of the club for them. And I think it's something players should really be careful with what people they're working together. I mean, there are a lot of good people out there, but as well, there are a lot of not good people out there. And the players should really, really be careful and should really, really, getting more deeper into the person, like the person who represents yourself at the club. This is something I would like to change. It's a really hard and tough one. Probably our sporting directors has the same experience, but I see that right now in women's football coming up. There are a lot of people around there where they shouldn't be there.
All right. We're running a little short of time, so quick answers here at the end. Eniola, the beautiful game, how do we make it more beautiful?
Yeah, well, I think for me, football has always had the power to change lives and bring people together. So I think for me, I'd like to see more, and I think we've seen it with the pandemic, more football clubs, particularly on the women's side, doing more in the community and really sort of using their power and the scope to really bring the community together to actually change things in the community. And make it almost part of, sponsorship models, for example. So let's say a club does a deal with, I don't know, Nike. Can 10% of that deal, the financial deal, go towards a community project around the local community of the club? These things are really powerful because it not only sort of connects the community to the club, but it also actually brings change in certain areas in the social community. So I'd like to see much more of that from football clubs to bring people together for the beautiful game.
Great answer. Reconnecting with community and society. Hanno, your thoughts on that?
Quite shortly, maybe. If we think about the operative side of the organization, we have to be a little bit more agile what we are doing at the moment. And if we think about the political side, of course, transparency, openness, and based on our values, let's keep them really clear that what we are doing and where is the foundation, our values, and we have to really follow them and be the examples.
Value-based leadership, another great topic. Thank you, Hanno. And Simon?
Yeah, I only want to add the other speaker. So I think football is for everybody, and we have a really privileged position in society. As you can see now, during the pandemic, we are playing and other things cannot work, but we can go on and play football. And so we have a really privileged position, and we should use it for our position in society, and we should be the change we want to see in society. And we have a lot of values: fair play, human rights, transparency, respect on and off the pitch, and we should show that in the future when the football is acting.
Great sum up on this one. Let football be the change we want to see in society. Thanks a lot. for joining us today. 4 of you. Great answers, great insights, taking us to the next topic here. We'll be talking about the women's game and the development and challenges in the women's game shortly. Thank you all.